following lecture was produced by Glorian Publishing, a non-profit organization, and is one of hundreds of lectures freely available via download, podcasts, streaming radio, and transcription. These lectures range in topic and complexity in order to address the many needs of humanity. We invite you to browse our library of lectures, books, courses, and articles to find teachings that suit you. Through the support of donations, Glorian Publishing has published 40 books, hosts international retreats several times a year, offers free online courses, and many other valuable resources, available to anyone worldwide. All of this has been made possible by the financial support of listeners like you. Your donations make it possible for this free public service to reach thousands of people every day. To make a tax-deductible donation in any amount, even anonymously, visit GnosticTeachings.org. Now, with heartfelt wishes for the end of suffering for all creatures, we begin the lecture. May all beings be happy.
This is the fourth lecture in our series of lectures about death. And as such, we're building on the concepts that we've established previously. It's important that you have heard those lectures and contemplated their contents in order to understand today's talk. Today we're getting into the difficult part, the real depth of this information. To quickly summarize what we've been talking about, life and death are an integrated whole. They cannot be separated from one another. The ability to be alive depends upon and relies upon the existence of death. Life and death are two sides of one phenomenon. And because of that, because we're in living bodies, we must die. This is unavoidable. In fact, it's normal, it's natural. And as we've been explaining in previous lectures, death is nothing to be feared, but should be instead embraced, harnessed, utilized as a gateway to a better life. And really, this is the ultimate point of spirituality. How to harness life and death in order to elevate life and death. In order to project our mind stream to a higher level of living and a higher level of dying in order to ascend into greater knowledge. Obviously, this philosophy is directly opposed to the current of our culture, which seeks instead to deepen our fear, our attachment, our suffering. So for us to comprehend life and death from the context of real spirituality, it takes a great revolution in our way of thinking, in our way of feeling, but mostly in our way of perception. We have to change how we see in order to comprehend what life and death really mean. So in that context, we need to understand that as life and death are one integrated whole, and spirituality is about the transformation of life and death in order for us to ascend to a higher level, we need to know how. Merely believing in spirituality or thinking about spirituality does not make it so. What makes it happen is action. Conscious action that's informed by knowledge. Conscious action that knows how to produce the effects that we want. Everything is cause and effect. If we're seeking a particular goal, we need to know how to achieve that goal. And it's not through beliefs or theories. That's why we need to understand why we must die. We need to understand why death is a requirement in nature. Why death is unavoidable and in fact must be harnessed. We study this map called the Tree of Life, or Kabbalah. And there are many variations on this image or graphic. It's just a symbol that represents the interplay of matter and energy in different densities in nature. That nature is outside of us and inside of us. This Tree of Life maps not only the exterior world, but our interior world. And as such, it demonstrates or illustrates a way of understanding life and death. A way of understanding how we've come to be and where we're going. The reason this is important is, as we've explained in the previous lectures, all of these spheres are worlds. They are inner worlds inside of us, and they are outer worlds outside of us. And there is a correspondence between what is inside and outside. They are directly related. Our experience of the world as it is now is determined by what we are inside, psychologically. The alcoholic experiences life through the lens of alcohol. The sex addict experiences life through that lens of addiction to lust. The fanatic, whether it's political or spiritual, experiences life through the lens of fanaticism. We all experience life through a lens. That lens is our mind. That mind is here on this graphic. But the level of mind that we have is very low because it's corrupted by ignorance, by craving, by aversion. This is what we explained in the previous lecture. Ignorance, craving, and aversion, the three poisons. And from these come the 5 poisons, the 7 sins. All the different ways that you can categorize or conceptualize the immense complexity of desire, ego. Here on this graphic, it's represented by the world of Klipot, which in the West is called hell. That exterior world of hell, which is an actual place, is directly related to the interior world of hell, which is our subconsciousness, our unconsciousness, our infra-consciousness, the submerged depths of our minds, within which we have all of the consequences of our previous actions related with desire. Anger, lust, pride, envy, greed, gluttony. All of those discursive, psychological aggregates that are at the root of suffering. Thus, we are bound to repeat the contents of our mind. This is what is called samsara, cyclic existence. We are trapped in it, bound to it because of our actions, because of our behavior. We repeat and suffer continually because of our ignorance about the consequences of our actions. Nonetheless, it doesn't have to be that way. There is another path, another way to live life and to experience death. Suffering is not the only option. And that's why we have spirituality, religion, dharma, the Tao, all the different teachings which in their essence express the same content. Radically transform your mind, and you will radically transform living and dying. That transformation of mind is inside, not outside. It is a change of perspective, a change of how we see, a change of attitude, and mostly a change of behavior. External behavior and internal behavior. Why is all this important? Because everything is in motion. This glyph or map that we look at is not static or still. It is highly dynamic. All the parts of this image are moving at all times. Inside of us is a constant motion set into activity by our activity, psychologically. How we act, how we behave, how we think, how we feel, puts this in motion and determines its trajectory through space. This is basic karma, cause and effect. In other words, what we will be tomorrow is determined by how we act today. That action is not merely physical, it's psychological. It's how we use the mind, how we use the heart, how we use sex, how we use the body, how we use every particle of energy that passes through us. And in every moment, we are transforming energy. We're part of a great cycle. Visualize this, that there is a great wheel in motion. You see, nature works in cycles, continual cycles. But that cycle in motion does not spin in one position. It spins in motion through space. It makes a spiral. And that spiral doesn't move in one direction through space. It has infinite capacity to move in any direction. This is our mind stream. This is the thread or current of our energy through time and space. All of our past actions have built a spiral motion through time and space. And all of our actions today project and modify that trajectory through time and space. And moreover, this cycle, which is the cycle of today, from when we wake to when we sleep, it is the cycle of this life from being born to dying. It is the cycle from death to the next birth. It is the cycle from existence to existence, from body to body. It is a huge, complex, very complicated, intertwined thread of action, of which we are completely ignorant. This is critical to comprehend. It is the very basis of self-realization, of self-knowledge. To comprehend this complex, intertwined series of actions and consequences. The Buddha Shakyamuni characterized it as 12 interlocking sets of actions and consequences. Each interlocking piece is both an action and a consequence. And in Pali, it's called the 12 nidanas, the chain of causality, or dependent origination. In Sanskrit, pratitya samutpada is a very complex but equally beautiful teaching about the nature of existence. That cycle of action and consequence encompasses this entire tree of life on every level, all the way up to the absolute, which is the emptiness, the reality from which everything emerges. What I'm trying to put into an image for you is how beautifully complex your existence is. It is not just about bills and rent and a job and sex and money. we have a reason to be alive. We also have a reason to die. And we need to understand those things so that we can take full advantage of life and death and realize their purpose. We're on this great wheel. The wheel is, of course, related with our psychology and the movement of our mind through time and space. But we're part of another great wheel, the wheel of evolution, or the wheel of nature. So just as we have an internal wheel, which is the recurrent cycles of energy that move through our psychology, we are part of a great wheel in nature, and we have been for eternities. This wheel is how mechanical nature exists. It is the process of evolution. It is how energy first comes out of the absolute, the nothingness. Shunyata, the Ein Sof. And those sparks of energy enter into mechanical evolution, first elaborating the simplest particles, gradually becoming over eons more complex as minerals. Those minerals gradually evolve to plants. The plants, over millions of years, gradually evolve to animals. And so we see the vast, incredible beauty of nature, which is a great cycle of life and death. Everything in nature is born and dies. So we need to become aware of two interconnected, interdependent currents. A current of matter and a current of energy that intertwine around each other like a beautiful rope, the threads of a rope. In physical world, there are physical minerals. There are physical plants. There are physical animals. And in the physical world, those physical bodies are evolving over countless eons through great cosmic rounds of life and death. There are processes of evolution where these bodies, physical bodies, gradually develop and change according to all the laws of nature. But those bodies are not the souls. Souls enter into and exit those bodies as they experience birth and death. The bodies are born and die. They are born, they sustain for a while, and they die. Consciousness enters a body, lives in it till that body dies. That consciousness leaves and goes to its next body according to its karma. So we see two intertwined threads. The physical bodies, the consciousness. They are not the same. They're different. Why does this matter? We were once animals. We were once plants. We were once minerals. But our consciousness, over millions of years, evolved through those bodies. Little by little, being born and dying, until our consciousness, our essence, graduated to the next level. And so we've moved through millions of bodies, millions of births and deaths, in the mineral kingdom, in the plant kingdom, in the animal kingdom, gradually entering more and more sophisticated bodies so that our consciousness could gather more and more sophisticated knowledge. This is the point. Over millions of years, our spark of consciousness gradually evolved, acquiring experience, acquiring knowledge, at the level of an elemental, which are what all these creatures are, minerals, plants, and animals. They are elements of nature. Simple. After this great, long process of evolution, once we enter into humanoid bodies, A humanoid is really merely an animal that has an intellect. It is merely an animal that can reason, that can compare, that begins to have willpower, individual will, that has the capacity to develop that. All of us are animals with intellect. The majority of our mind is animal, instinctive, only concerned about security, money, lust, and power. Those of us who take life seriously to ascend to another level understand that the animal capacities are what degenerate us. And that to elevate our soul to a higher level, we have to conquer the animal nature and cultivate and grow human nature, which are all the virtues that our religions have been teaching us. Altruism, conscious, selfless love, compassion, patience, acceptance, tolerance. Qualities that we as intellectual animals struggle to develop. It's easy for us to be angry. It is not easy for us to be harmonious and serene, because the human in us is tiny. It is an embryo. It is not developed. Occasionally, in our history, we have met human beings, real human beings. Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Quetzalcoatl, Moses, Padmasambhava, Milarepa, Joan of Arc. Many examples of real human beings who irradiated true human qualities. Those human qualities are not developed in the mechanical wheel of evolution and devolution. Those qualities, those virtues, are not developed in the course of day-to-day existence. They are developed by conscious application of willpower to dominate and control and eliminate the animal nature. That is why in the humanoid kingdom is the only possibility to enter into conscious evolution, to become an angel, a Buddha, a master, a bodhisattva, a diva, whatever name you want to use for a real human being. Only humanoids can enter that conscious evolution. So we see two streams of evolution: the mechanical one of nature, the conscious one of the heavens. What I'm trying to illustrate for you is that life and death is a process of evolution. As we've ascended through these lower kingdoms, we have taken bodies and abandoned them for better ones. With the mind that we have, to be in the body of a mineral would be horrible suffering. And if we return back down this wheel through hell, we will experience that. For the mind that we have to be in the body of a plant or the body of an animal would be a horrible suffering. And if we don't step off the wheel of mechanical evolution, we will experience that suffering. That is what hell is. It is degrading, a devolution, a return back, a regression, a decay. So in life, now, we're at the top of the wheel of mechanical evolution. We can't go any further. Nature can't take us any further. Nature is done with what it could give us. Nature has given us these physical bodies, which are at the peak of this era's possible mechanical evolution. Nature has given us protoplasmic bodies, which are the psychological bodies of our heart and mind. The lunar astral body and the lunar mental body, which are really animal bodies. They are animal mind, given to us by nature. They belong to nature, and nature will take them back. The same way that nature will take back our physical body. Nature will take back our mind. That is what hell is. It is nature taking back its elements, the way it takes back a physical body and decomposes it. It will also do that with our mind. But if we exercise will, conscious will, and learn the science to harness that will and step off this wheel, we can enter into another level, the humanoid level, the level of a human being. And there, things become even more complicated because none of it is mechanical. None of it just happens naturally. To enter conscious evolution is a process of conscious steps of advancement. It doesn't happen by itself. Just because you've joined a church or a temple or a group, you will not reach the heights just because you belong to a group. Everyone who ascends those levels has to become a child of their own deeds, what we call an adept or a master. It is a master of oneself. So, life and death are the process of which these elements of our psychology provide us the opportunity to change. We explained previously the difference between essence and ego. Essence is pure unmodified consciousness. No desire. Ego is modified consciousness. Our consciousness trapped in psychological habits and tendencies that are harmful, even if they appear good on the surface. And finally, personality, which is the mask through which they both work. You need to remember these factors. And as we explained in the previous lecture, when we die and we abandon the physical body and the vital body, our mind stream, modified, is projected into its next possible evolutionary stage, determined by our state of mind. Meaning that our mind-heart, our psychological state, when it's projected through the betweens, that which lies between death and a new birth, experiences a range of states. And those range of states provide an opportunity for change. So now we come to the point of this lecture. And I'm going to now quote the first lines of a very famous book. Most people know it as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but that's not the actual name. The actual name is The Great Liberation by Hearing in the Intermediate States. The very first lines of this very important scripture say, as a prayer, I bow down to the spiritual teachers, embodiment of the three Buddha bodies, to the Dharmakaya, the Buddha body of reality, infinite light, Amitabha, to the Sambhogakaya, Buddha body of perfect resource, the peaceful and wrathful lotus deities, and to Nirmanakaya, the Buddha body of emanation, Padmakara, protector of all beings. Many people think that they can sit and read the Tibetan Book of the Dead and somehow comprehend it without understanding the exact meaning of all these terms. That's impossible. We need to understand what these words mean and how they fit into our psychology, what they mean in nature. As I was explaining, on the Tree of Life, we find a glyph or map of all of our inner constitution. And as I mentioned, this glyph or map appears in every religion in different forms. You'll find it in Taoism, in Buddhism, and in Hinduism. Just represented in different ways. As I was explaining, we are here in the physical body with our mind. And on the Tree of Life, the physical body is represented as Malkut. The physical body is not our only body. I also told you about the protoplasmic bodies that we receive from nature that serve as vehicles of mind. We experience them as feelings and thoughts. And we experience these protoplasmic bodies when we dream. The body you use when dreaming is your protoplasmic bodies, your mental astral body. It is not physical. It is a body that lives and abides in the fifth dimension, the world of dreams. It is ductile, flexible. It can pass through walls. It can fly. It can teleport. It has many abilities that the physical body lacks. But it is only an animal body. It is an elemental body. It is no different from the mind-heart of a dog or a cat. It's only slightly more evolved through nature. And the difference is very marginal. We think we're very elevated and great. We're not. If we look at the state of our planet, we can see how great we are. Our greatest accomplishment is the massive production of war and destruction. Institutionalized corruption. Greed. Lust. We don't see the artists of this humanity celebrating our potential virtues by giving us art and music and stories about conscious love, about the potentials for spirit to the infinite degree of purity. What our artists make for us is garbage that celebrates how to kill, how to indulge in all of our animal passions, that stimulate our envy and make us desire more. This is our level of being as a humanity, animal. These protoplasmic bodies, our astral body and mental body, are animal bodies. They are animal. They are not human. A master, an angel, who observes those inner bodies, in other words, our internal psychological state, sees them as animals, with the faces corresponding to our own psychological idiosyncrasy. Inside this, inhabiting these bodies, is the spark of essence that we have, the consciousness, what in Sanskrit is called Tathagatagarbha, which means the embryo of the Buddha, or Buddha nature. It is this seed that has been evolving through all the cycles of nature for millions of years to acquire knowledge, to finally acquire this precious resource of a human body, and to have the potential to realize its true nature, which is not animal. Our true nature is not animal. Our true nature is not instinct for survival or sex or procreation. That is not our true nature. That is the nature of the animal, which is only one phase of evolution through which we passed. Our true nature relates to where that spark originally came from before it entered into evolution, millions of years ago. That spark of essence, that Buddha nature, emanated out from the absolute, from the emptiness, from the divine. That is what is deep inside of every particle of our being. But that light has become obscured by desire, by anger, by pride, by fear, by fanaticism and dogma, by culture and philosophy, by personality. Yet if we acquire the capacity to harness our consciousness now, in the moment, continually making the effort to be present and watchful, separating the consciousness from the cage that binds it, which is this sense of I. That separation gives us the capacity to start to realize the true nature of that Buddha nature. What some traditions call soul. By soul here, we don't just mean the vehicles that the consciousness uses. Because sometimes we use soul in that way. By soul here, I mean what most people mean by soul, which is our true self. What is our true nature? Is it the country we come from? The language we speak? Is it being a man or being a woman? Is it being Hindu or Buddhist or Christian? Being an American, European, Australian, Indian? None of these have anything to do with reality. All of these are temporary. Every one of us has been many races. We've all been men and women. We've all been humanoids. We've been animals. We've been plants. We've been minerals. And that is why the Zen master says, show me your original face. None of us know that. That is why we suffer. Our original face. Where is our original face through all of the millions of years of evolution we've passed through? In each body, we've become identified with that body and we think it is us. In the same way that now, we put on a new set of clothes and we say, this is the real me. Forgetting that in a few days, a few months, we'll throw those clothes away for another set of clothes and think, oh, these new clothes are really the real me. A fundamental state of ignorance, a mistaken notion of identity. We think we are the car we drive, the clothes we wear, the language we speak, the name we have, our memories, our tastes, and all of that is a collection of lies. Our true nature is not our history. It is not our body. It is not the vital body, which is the energy in that body. Our true nature is not our emotions, which is the astral body. Our true nature is not our thoughts. That's the mental body. Our true nature is not even the consciousness, because that consciousness is an emanation or a spark from something else. Many say our true nature is Atman, which is here related with Chesed, the innermost. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Christianity calls this entity our Father. But ultimately, not even He is our true nature. And this is why Buddha taught the doctrine of Anatman, the doctrine of no self. Yes, Atman has said our innermost is real and is a root of our consciousness, but not the ultimate one. Because even He depends on what He came from. Our innermost, our spirit, our inner Father, or inner Buddha, came from His Buddha, His Father. Our inner Father has a Father. Our spirit has a source. So the real nature of our self is far beyond all of these things that we've been taught in our common religions. These teachings have been withheld only in the highest level of teaching, the esoteric level. Above Chesed, the innermost, we see 3 spheres that represent the Trinity in every religion. The Christians call it Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Hindus call it Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. In Buddhism, it is called Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, the Trikaya. Buddhism has 4 or 5 different ways of representing this aspect, just the same way every other religion does too. In Kabbalah, Judaism, these three are Keter, Chokmah, Binah. Gurdjieff called them the holy affirming, the holy denying, and the holy conciliating. The Gnostics called this the Logos, the Word. These three are the gateway to our real self. Our real self, our ultimate nature, is the emptiness, the absolute, the Ein Sof, Shunyata, which is the ultimate nature of everything. It is the fundamental ground of all existence. It is a state of pure potentiality, a state of pure happiness. Absolutely unconditioned. There are no laws except itself. It is Brahma in the fullest sense of that word. It is the ultimate state of reality, the true reality, about which we have no clue. In that level, it is pure happiness, pure joy, pure being. It is life unconditioned by any restriction. It is the purest bliss, the purest interconnectedness of all things. It is a state so elevated and beautiful and sublime, it is incommunicable. It can never be described or explained and has to be experienced to be understood. It is that which we have always been longing for throughout all of our millions of lives. It is where we left and where we long to go back. It is our real life, our true nature. That spark of light that left that state entered into evolution to gain knowledge of itself, to comprehend itself. It projected itself into existence. And this whole enormously complex series of worlds and universes and infinites exists for that reason. And every single particle in existence has within it a particle of that non-existence, the absolute. And at the end of the cosmic day, all of those particles will be reabsorbed back. So there is life and death at that level. Existence itself is born, lives, and dies. All the gods return back. Everything does. They all return back through the three kaya. The question is, when we go back, will we be conscious of it? Will we be cognizant, aware? And you can know the answer to that question right now. What happens when you go to sleep? All of us, pretty much, lose consciousness completely because we are asleep, physically. If you want to retain cognizance of what happens after death, and likewise, at the end of your cosmic evolution, have cognizance of returning back to the absolute, you need to develop that power of consciousness to be awake, to have cognizance of these levels. When your own personal tree of life, which is you, is inhaled back into the nostrils of your inner God at the end of your cosmic manifestation, will you be cognizant of that? It isn't a question of what's the future going to be like. It's a question of how you are right now. We can make no predictions about the future. I know we all like to believe, one day I'm going to be very spiritual and awake. That is a deception. There is no future. There is no time. There is only now. If you intend to awaken and be awake at the return to your innermost, at the return to your trikaya, at the return to the absolute, you must be awake now. Because you don't know when that moment will be. And this is why Jesus said, awaken, for you know at not what hour the Master will come. We need to be awake, watchful, and ready. These three kayas are very difficult to comprehend because they are very subtle and abstract. There are many ways to understand them and explain them, all equally true. If you think about how complicated and sophisticated our physical body is, and that's way down here at the bottom of the tree of life, and we have physical access to it with our senses. We can poke and prod it and measure it and analyze it all we want. We still don't understand the physical body. We barely understand the body we're using every day. Most of us have no idea what all the organs are in our body and how they work. And this is proven by the garbage we keep eating and drinking, poisoning our body. And then we hear about the vital body and the astral body and the mental body, a lot of theories, but very few of us have actually experienced those bodies and worked with them consciously, much less to have analyzed them and investigated them deeply to understand how they work. And even further, how many of us have experienced and analyzed the causal body or Buddhic body or Atmic body? Very rare. So be prepared to take a while to comprehend the kayas. Their understanding does not come easily, but I'll give you a basic introduction to them. The most elevated, the first body on the tree of life is the Dharmakaya. This word dharma is Sanskrit and has many meanings. We talk about Gnosis, or the spiritual teaching, as dharma. Dharma means truth. It means law. It means reality. So, Dharmakaya is the reality body. And you can see its position on the tree of life. It is the gateway to the absolute. It is the first manifestation, the first logos, the Father, Keter, the crown of life, mentioned in the book of Revelation. Dharmakaya is the most subtle, elusive, beautiful aspect of our being. It is the first part that comes out of the absolute. It is the first manifestation of the light that comes out of the Ein Sof. It is Keter. It is the reality body. It is the body that can return back into the absolute, the unmanifested. It is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. If you ever think about the most elevated, beautiful angel or Buddha that has ever existed, that is it. It is a type of beauty that is absolutely inexpressible, that is stunning, and that will bring you to your knees. The types of beings that have a fully developed Dharmakaya are like Jesus. With a type of beauty and love that overwhelms universes with so much love. That's how powerful those bodies are. The second is the Sambhogakaya. Sambhoga is also a Sanskrit term, which has very deep meanings. But let me first explain kaya, because all of these share the suffix kaya, which is Sanskrit. Kaya means vehicle, vessel, body. So Sambhogakaya, being the second, is called the perfect resource body. This is one definition or interpretation of Sambhoga. But Sambhoga is very deep in its implications, because the phrase Sambhoga in Sanskrit can mean enjoyment, pleasure, bliss, in exactly the same way we use the Hebrew word Eden. Most importantly, this word Sambhoga means sexual enjoyment. Anyone who studied Tantra sees the immediate relevance of that name, especially if you've studied the Tree of Life. We're talking about the sphere of Chokmah, which in Christianity is called the sun. Chokmah is the world of Christ. Compassion. Bodhicitta. Chokmah translated means wisdom, which in Sanskrit is bodhi. This is the emergence of bodhicitta, which is the heart essence of a bodhisattva. And a bodhisattva is a vehicle of Christ. Sambhogakaya represents all of the luminous qualities of Christ. All of those particles of light, of love, that Christ emanates. Sambhogakaya is incredibly complex and beautiful. It is the highest form of wisdom that exists. It is the very wisdom mind of all Buddhas, of all angels. If you were to visualize and imagine all of the angels and Buddhas in existence, and imagine their minds, which are all love and knowledge, the knowledge that creates universes, that is Sambhogakaya. Perfect resource is how it's translated into English. That perfect resource is the creative power, the knowledge that empowers creation. And that's because the third kaya, Nirmanakaya, means creation body. It's also called manifestation body, because nirmana can be translated as construction, creation, manifestation. This corresponds exactly to Kabbalah. Nirmanakaya relates with the sphere in Kabbalah called Binah, which in Hebrew means intelligence. Binah is called in Christianity the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the creative power of God, the Father, Mother, Abba, Ima, or Yab, Yum, who brings life, who gives life. In Kabbalah, we study 4 worlds. These 3 kaya relate to the world of Atziluth, the first world, the world of archetypes. So these 3 kaya represent the archetypes in all things. We have inside of us our internal spiritual archetype, a blueprint of the Buddha that we should become, the angel, the God, the master that we should be. But we are not. That blueprint is the 3 kaya in us. And when we take seriously, daily, the science to realize our true nature, which is that blueprint, we begin to create that true God, that master who is in us. We're putting into motion the creative power of the 3 kaya in us, through us. That power is sexual and psychological. In other words, the reality body, using the knowledge of Sambhogakaya, perfect sexual enjoyment, creates through the nirmanakaya, the manifestation or creation body, and thus the three kaya become father, mother, yab, yum. And they create through what's called in Hebrew, da'at, the tree of knowledge, tantra. But nothing animal there, no lust, divine, pure sexuality. Krishna and his spouse represent this. Pure love of God and goddess. What in Hebrew are called Elohim. God, goddess, united. To create universes, worlds, a soul. Us. As a master. That means that the world of Atzilut has passed through that to create, which is the second world in Kabbalah called Bria, which means creation. And this is where we start to see the emergence, firstly of Chesed, the sun, which is Ganesha in Hinduism. This is why we see Shiva and Shakti with their son Ganesh. This is Isis and Osiris with their son Horus. So you see now this beautiful interplay of trinities and dualities, of energies put in motion. The Trikaya are what empower and facilitate all of that. But only if one knows how to walk the path. By harnessing our energies and working in harmony with the divine within us. We can't behave as we have been, pursuing animal desire. We have to be pursuing the will of God, which is in us. So now we've set the stage for you to understand what these three kaya really mean. As I explained, the Dharmakaya is the reality body. It is that first emanation from the Absolute, the being of the being, the vehicle through which we can experience and realize our true nature, which is the Absolute, the emptiness. The second is Sambhogakaya, the perfect resource body, which is the knowledge, the wisdom of our inner true nature. And finally, the Nirmanakaya, which is the emanation of those kaya, how they operate. The reason this matters, the reason we need to study this and understand this, is because, as I said, when I quoted the first 3 lines of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, these 3 kayas are at the base of everything. They are not just theories. They are not just fancy words. They are states of being that in us are undeveloped. But we can experience them and learn what benefits can be acquired through those experiences. This is why we learn meditation and dream yoga and how to be attentive from moment to moment in our daily life so that we can take advantage of the betweens or bardos. The first 3, as we explained in the previous lecture, we experience these first 3 betweens or states of being during our common lives if we know something of this science. If we are ignorant of real spirituality, if we do not practice, is what I mean, we will not experience these. Let me state that one more time. Tantric Buddhism presents 6 betweens, states of consciousness, that can be experienced by someone who is awakening consciousness. If we are not making the conscious effort every day to awaken consciousness, we will not experience these consciously. We will experience them the way we've always experienced everything, asleep, mechanically, tossed around by karma, in complete ignorance. If we awaken every day, we can start to consciously experience these states and use them as like a trampoline, a tool that can help us reach another level. So these three are the vigil state, the dream state, and the meditation state that we explained previously. The vigil state is a state of vigilance, cognizant watchfulness from moment to moment. It means that one is constantly watching one's mind. Not just what's going on outside, not just counting the tiles on the floor or counting the hairs on the end of your nose. Watching one's mind. Being cognizant of oneself, of what we do, of what we think, of what we feel, and most importantly, of how we deal with others. It is useless to be conscious of oneself and continue to be cruel and lustful. It is useless and harmful to be conscious of oneself and to continue to be angry and arrogant. Cognizance of oneself should be accompanied by strong ethics. Not morals, ethics. Doing what is right. Being humble. Being kind. Being generous. Being diligent. That is the real vigil state that can transform us. Likewise, in the dream state, we learn to be cognizant. Not sleeping like an animal. Awake. Consciously in control of our dreaming. The same way that we're consciously in control of our physical bodies when we're up around in the vigil state, we are consciously in control of our dream bodies. Cognizantly directing the course of dreams. This is called dream yoga. We need this skill in order to transform death. And finally, the meditation state. To be cognizant in the meditation state, out of the body, perceiving reality. Meditation, real meditation, is not spacing out. It is not a trance. It is not to be distracted or daydream or fantasize. It is bright, clear, watchful, deeply centered, and all-perceiving. Not with the eyes, not with the ears, not with the physical body, with the consciousness. Active and awake, whether in the body or out of the body. The real state of meditation perceives the facts as they are and is not limited by the physical senses, but can go out, can investigate anything in nature, inside or outside. That is real meditation. It is not mantras and chanting. It is not daydreaming and fantasizing. It is conscious, pure perception of reality, not fantasy. This is real meditation. So these are the first three bardos, betweens, that we can work on now. This is why this science is so serious. It's not a game. It's difficult. It requires daily effort and a lot of relaxation and a lot of patience. Nonetheless, if we start learning to transform these three bardos, then we are preparing ourselves to take advantage of the three bardos that happen from death to a new birth. This is why it becomes so significant. Just the same way that we go to sleep every night, we leave the body. We go into the world of dreams. That world is the same world as the world of the dead. Every time we go to sleep at night, we go into the world of the fifth dimension with our lunar, astral, mental body. If we're unconscious of that, we're in limbo, the world of the dead, seeing the projections of our own mind. Not even seeing limbo. We're not even awake enough to see where we are. We're only seeing the projections of our mind. All of our fears, our lusts, our anger. When we die, we experience the same thing. The only difference is the connection to the physical body has been severed. And we're waiting for the karma to propel us into a new body. But if we've trained our consciousness very well every day, and death comes, and we die physically, then we leave the body conscious. And we experience the first between, the death phase. If we are cognizant, awake, when we die, we can have immediate access to our inner Dharmakaya, the reality body. That is why the Tibetan Book of the Dead was written. This is what people don't get. Some people think the Tibetan Book of the Dead is just cool, or you just read it to your grandma who died, and maybe it will help her. It might. But the book is really written for people who've had some training. Not the highest level of training, because for them there are other scriptures. The book that explains natural liberation through hearing, or this Tibetan Book of the Dead, is written for those who've had beginning training, like us. Beginning training means they at least know how to be awake, to not be distracted. All of us should know that if we've been studying this teaching for any period of time. How to be awake. That person, when that body dies and the person leaves the body, and that essence is there in their astral mental body, and the karma is in motion, if they are awake and they hear the instruction or remember the instruction of how to be cognizant, they can perceive the clear light, Dharmakaya, their true nature, the gateway to the absolute. This is why Padmasambhava gave that teaching, to guide the souls who had some training but were not yet prepared fully. This means all of us. We've all had a little bit of training, some more than others, some less. And chances are we're going to die and not be ready. If we remember anything ever, it's this. Be awake, pay attention, don't be distracted. Be awake, cognizant of oneself and what you're seeing. Don't be distracted by any attachment, by any fear, by any desire, by emotions, by thoughts. Don't let your mind confuse you. Be present. If someone doesn't make it through the death phase cognizantly, meaning that they become distracted by the wailing of their relatives or by their own attachment to their children or their spouse, and they pass through the phase of death asleep, fascinated, afraid, and they enter the next phase, which is the reality phase. If they awaken then, if they become cognizant in that phase, they can access Sambhogakaya, which is still a gateway. It's a part of the being that can provide an entrance to a higher level of understanding. This phase is difficult. It's this phase that one is confronted with all of one's karma. There are many, many images and illusions that appear in all types of forms. Imagine all the different kinds of dreams and nightmares you've ever had. That is it. It is all kinds of stuff you can barely imagine. And if you're fascinated by your dreams now and unconscious in your dreams now, so will you be in this phase if you don't prepare. Your dreams, the images, will completely hypnotize you as they do now. So learn to not be hypnotized by dreaming. If someone doesn't manage to awaken consciousness in the reality phase, and they pass through that phase fascinated, meaning that they don't have any awareness of themselves, they're just fascinated or hypnotized by what they see, they're afraid, they're running away, or they're lustful resentful and attached and chasing after images. Then they pass to the next phase, which is rebirth. And this is where all that karma that's in motion in the reality phase clenches. And that person is drawn into a womb by magnetism, by karma. If the person realizes and becomes awake, they can get in touch with their inner nirmanakaya, the creation body. Because in that moment, a new womb is being opened for them and a new life. Creation is about to happen. So their own inner nirmanakaya, creation body, or manifestation body, is in motion, projected through the karma in order to establish a new evolutionary stage. If we're cognizant and awake in that phase, we can have an influence over the body that we take. We can't choose it, but we can influence it. We can enter it consciously. And if we don't, then we're born just the way we were born this time. Asleep, taken by karma, directly into where we need to suffer and pay our debts. These are the betweens. Now you understand why the preparation is so important. To prepare for death. These intermediary phases, death, reality, and rebirth, proceed according to the circumstances and the karma. Some people have so much karma that these three phases pass by very rapidly, almost instantaneously. It's probably true for many of us. That as soon as we died in our previous existence, our karma was so strong we were propelled right into a new body. No cognizance of it, no choice, pure karmic forces at work. If we're one of those few who had some training, we might have had the ability to influence that transition. Maybe we accrued some good results from our previous actions. Maybe we did some charity. Maybe we helped people spiritually. Maybe we really did a strong action in our previous life that altered the progression of these three phases. That will be evident in the context of our contemporary existence, if we're being given the chance to continue that type of work. Most of us are not. The facts are what speak. We have to look at the facts of our lives, not fantasies, not imagining we were all great masters in the past, but looking at the facts of who we are now was created by who we were before. If we're common, ordinary, everyday people suffering now, then we were then too. We have to throw away all those fantasies about being great initiates when we're not. So our goal now in these types of studies is to take advantage of these first three between states: vigil, dreams, and meditation. A rigorous daily training, constant effort to be awake, to receive all impressions consciously, not mechanically, and to comprehend them. Not avoiding, not repressing, not craving, not avoiding. Not indulging in things and not avoiding things, but in the middle. Cognizant, aware, discriminating. Learning about our own mind. Learning about ourselves. Acquiring knowledge. In this type of effort, if you become serious, you will become to realize that it makes really very little difference what your job is, what city you live in, who your friends are, what clothes you wear, what car you drive, how much is in your bank. You realize how quickly people become seduced by those illusions, because that's all they are. When you start to really realize and experience that you've been in many bodies before, You've been poor, you've been rich, you've been black, you've been brown-skinned, you've been white. And you start to realize that you're sick of it, tired of suffering, tired of repeating the same problems and mistakes again and again. You want out. Your three kaya are the way. If you learn to be awake and aware in the vigil, dream, and meditation state, you become a real Gnostic, in other words. You will start to experience the three kaya. It won't be a theory. Especially through the dream and meditation states. In the meditation state especially, if you really become a master of meditation, which is what a Gnostic is, if you're not a master of meditation, you're not a Gnostic. The master of meditation enters into their three kaya, simply put. They experience reality. Now, as we explained before, not all of us have the willpower to reach the heights of spiritual development. I should have put this one. We have to be sincere with ourselves and work in the level in which we are. Stated bluntly, we are all elementals. Animal souls that have an intellect. We're not human beings until we've created the solar astral body, the solar mental body, and the causal body. These three bodies are symbolized in all the mythologies and religions in different ways. They are what we can call soul. They are vessels or vehicles. They are the chariot that Krishna drives for Arjuna. They are the chariot of Ezekiel. They are the Merkabah of the Kabbalists and the Sahu of the Egyptians. The solar bodies are like our mind-heart. They are vessels in the fifth dimension, but they are not created by nature. They are created by our inner divinity through Tantra, through transmutation. They are what Jesus calls the second birth. To be born again is to give birth to the solar bodies. And this is a work of water and spirit, as he explained in the gospel. That water is Mayim in Hebrew, and Shamayim in Hebrew, the two waters. Those two waters are Yesod, the vital body, Dat, creation. The spirit that creates those bodies is the Nirmanakaya, with the power of Sambhogakaya. The Sambhogakaya is the wisdom of Christ, the light that illuminates the emanation body or creation body through that to create the solar bodies. When we have created those solar bodies, we become a Buddha, properly speaking. Not an animal. A Buddha, an angel, a real human being. So, let's make a difference between two levels of spiritual work. The first level is our level. We are all elementals, aspiring to be human beings. You can do a lot of work in this level, purifying the mind, eliminating ego and desire. The primary path that these types of souls take is called Sutrayana. Shravakayana or Hinayana. It is the foundational path in every religion, but I'm using Sanskrit words. The foundation level teaches you how to become an elemental Buddha. That is, a purified soul or an innocent angel, not a full Buddha. That is, we can become a saint. We can become a great yogi, a master in the elemental level, but who does not have solar bodies. The vast majority of those who enter the spiritual path work in this level. They become elementals of some degree of purity. Yogananda is a great example. Many, if not most, Tibetan lamas are examples of this level of attainment. And Chinese Buddhist masters, and Hindu masters, and Christian saints are elemental Buddhas. Animal souls, or nefesh, who purified the mind of many discursive elements, many desires, and became clean elementals, not 100% awake, but awake to some degree, and are able to reflect the light of divinity at their level. But they are not initiates. They are only at the first degree. The second level would be those who have acquired the solar bodies, one or all. These are initiates. These are Buddhas of another degree who have acquired a solar body or more than one solar body. And as such, they reflect more light from above. These are masters of even greater esteem, greater power. But they are not the highest. There's another level, which we call bodhisattvas. These first two levels, the beginners, what can also be called shravakas or hearers, those elementals who are pursuing the elemental path, can achieve levels of attainment and a great deal of wisdom, but they never incarnate Christ. They can teach about Christ, talk about Christ, but they don't have the solar bodies that Christ or the Trikaya can inhabit. Only the initiates who've created the solar bodies then have the potential to be an embodiment of the light of Christ. Remember I told you Sambhogakaya or Hokmah is also called Bodhi, wisdom. That is what incarnates in a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva means incarnation of wisdom. Those initiates in that second level who want to incarnate Christ go to the third level and become bodhisattvas. And this can only be done once they've created a causal body, the initiation of Tiferet. That causal body is a body of supreme beauty and strength, and it's necessary in order to harness and transmit the light of Christ. Because the light or intelligence of the three logos is far too intense to embody in any other creature. It's far too powerful. One must have the solar bodies in order to reflect that light. Very few take that path. Most elemental Buddhas, or initiate level Buddhas who have solar bodies, take what's called the spiral path. They become pratyeka Buddhas, nirvanis, demigods, devas, archangels, not archangels, but great angels, great beings, but without incarnating Christ. There are many masters like that. Not as many as there are in the levels below them, but many. It is very rare for one of those Buddhas to incarnate Christ and enter the straight path. what's called the path of the bodhisattva. Those enter into another level of work called the second mountain, in which they purify the entire ego in one life, maybe two. All the previous paths that I explained, the first and second levels, work on the ego slowly from body to body. In other words, they continue through the cycle of samsara, taking births according to karma to work on themselves. Gradually, little by little, if they're very strong willpower, they can gradually get better bodies, better situations to work. Sometimes they're born just in the heavens, heavenly realms, and work there briefly. But generally are pulled back to this level because of karma. And many of them fall because the karma is too strong and they fall back into temptation and have to start again. So the initiates and the elementals continue cycling in nature, being born and dying again and again and again. We always hear about Master such and such, who was a great Lama who died and has to be born in another body and keep working, because that's the level they're working in. Jesus, on the other hand, was working in another level. Jesus incarnated Christ. He had the solar bodies. He incarnated Christ in himself and transmitted that light. He walked the second mountain, meaning he purified the entirety of ego from his mind and reached Binah. When one walks through these paths, I'm compressing volumes and volumes of teachings into a few minutes. So if this is new to you, you're going to have to study. Each one of these spheres on the tree of life represents initiations that souls pass through if they're on the initiate path or the bodhisattva path. Every one of these spheres is an initiation. Tiferet is the fifth. Binah is the final initiation for a bodhisattva. Only bodhisattvas experience that. Binah is resurrection. It is the initiation that happens when the bodhisattva, who has incarnated Christ, has paid all of the karma from all of their previous lives in completion, suffered all the consequences and paid every debt, and dies, and is reborn, and has conquered mechanical evolution completely in themselves. And their Nirmanakaya is born as a resurrected master. Very rare that this happens. The greatest masters on this planet are examples of this level of mastery. Jesus, Buddha, Padmasambhava, Moses. Very few. Krishna, Rama. Very rare. There are many others who've reached it, but were unknown, anonymous. And the reason is humanity hates them. We hate resurrected masters because we love our desires. So we persecute resurrected masters. We kill them. We torture them. We burn them at the stake. We crucify them. So they generally work in anonymity. Nonetheless, that master, a resurrected master, then has more work to do in what's called the third mountain, and those levels are related to Sambhogakaya and Dharmakaya. We don't have time to talk about that today. So I've outlined for you several different approaches to the tree of life and to spiritual development. Let me explain one last thing that's very important. A bodhisattva who has incarnated Christ, created the solar bodies, and reached the end of the second mountain and resurrected, earns the title Nirmanakaya. They have created that body. They are a very high Buddha. Not like all the other Buddhas that exist in all the other levels of heaven or nirvana below them. They're very high. Nonetheless, elemental Buddhas in certain levels of work can acquire a lesser degree of nirmanakaya. It is not the same as having the body of nirmanakaya. It's like a reflection or a different octave. And the same is true of the simple elementals. This is what is possible in the between states. We are all elementals. The moment of death, if we are cognizant and very well trained in using our consciousness, we can access and experience our Dharmakaya, the highest level, at the moment of death, and have a realization of that, experience that. It doesn't mean that we've acquired the body of Dharmakaya. It does not mean that we've become a Buddha. But we can have an experience, what's called a realization. That experience could last an instant, but if we're well trained, we could sustain it. Does this make sense to you? Do you understand what I'm saying? How important this is? Likewise, in the reality phase, or the birth phase, we can access Sambhogakaya or Nirmanakaya. If we're trained enough to be cognizant, we can experience those things in an instant and have some comprehension or realization of it. If we're very well trained and don't become distracted at all, we can sustain that phase and acquire a lot of knowledge and make a big impact on the trajectory of our mind stream. This is how important death is. This is why we must die. We must die. On the first level, as I explained, because these bodies belong to nature, and nature takes them back. On the second level that I explained, because if we're evolving ourselves consciously, death gives us a chance to jump to a better body, to have better circumstances to acquire more knowledge. And if we're working even more seriously, as I explained, death offers us the opportunity to jump to a new kingdom, a whole other level of existence, from mineral to plant, plant to animal, animal to humanoid, and humanoid beyond. It is possible, if you have the karma and the training, when you die, to leave this world. But it won't happen because you wish it, or because you meant well. It will happen if you know how to do it, and do it by will. We get what we deserve. That is why Padmasambhava wrote the book, Natural Liberation Through Hearing, what we call the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It was to give all of us a chance to take advantage of the state after death and to acquire a better opportunity to deepen our work, to jump in evolution, to leap ahead. Any questions?
Sometimes you hear about lamas that will meditate as they die and keep their body in this state where they're not decomposing.
Right.
Is this related to some of the stuff you talked about?
It is. There are examples in every tradition of what in the West they're called incorruptibles. In Asian traditions, there are many examples of yogis, monks, nuns, lamas who have died and left the body in a state in which it does not decompose. That state may last a few days. It can even last years. Recently, a monk was found in Russia that had been dead, as I recall, 100 years, and he had not decomposed at all. Now, as soon as they opened up his reliquary chamber, he began to decompose. or changed because there was too much pollution and everything. But nonetheless, his body was preserved. It is completely related to this topic. But the resilience of the physical body is not necessarily a reflection of the level of attainment of the practitioner. It can be. It always is to some degree, but what I'm trying to say is it doesn't mean that that person was a resurrected master or an elemental Buddha or a bodhisattva. It may mean that they were practicing with the certain types of techniques, particularly related with great perfection and traditions like that, in which they're learning to work with the energies of the Trikaya. And those energies saturate the body. Also, the mind has become clean, so they don't have all the same putrefaction that we would have, because all of us are quite filthy psychologically. So that body is not as polluted, and it's able to sustain itself for longer after death. Like I mentioned before, we all stink, right? We have to wear a lot of deodorant and perfume and use soap every day because otherwise we smell. We have to brush our teeth constantly because we stink. That stink comes from our mind. If we had pure minds, our bodies would not stink. Our bodies would be fragrant. When you come into the presence of a genuine master, you will experience that, whether physically or internally. They don't stink. So, incorruptibles happen in all these different levels I explained. A soul that is still like a pure elemental soul, the body would not decompose like ours would. Same of an initiate or a bodhisattva. It depends. There are also cases where they're faked. So we have to be aware of that too. There was another question here.
You said that if we're aware or we have consciousness during the rebirth state, we can exercise some influence over the body that we enter into. But you said we did not choose the body. So what is the nature of that influence?
It's similar to the example I gave previously. If you're running and you're approaching a crevice, that last footstep before you leap is the one that determines your trajectory.
But I'm going down into the crevice anyway.
So you can either land on your feet or land on your head.
Okay.
It depends on the degree of consciousness you have, and it depends on your karma. If you're cognizant, you can have an influence. How much influence depends on the karma. There are too many possibilities there. The bottom line is, if you're aware, you can influence it. You may not be able to change that birth, but you might be able to influence the circumstances. It really depends. Yeah. There's another question in the back. Yeah, the idea of choosing parents we explained in a previous lecture. That's a myth. It's a myth that sounds nice and it sounds really comforting, but there's no scriptural evidence for it anywhere in the world. The only one who can truly choose their birth, the time, the place, the parents, the family, the era, the city, the country, is a master. And that person is awake through all those three phases and negotiates their karma. Right. Well, we're drawn to our parents by our karma. We have a relationship with those people that we established in previous existences. And or during the death phase, reality phase, and birth phase, we were in a circumstantial position in which the psychological environment of those parents drew us in. Often it's lust. So we have a psychological affinity with that family. But most of the time, it's just a karmic thread that's been going on for a long time. We've pretty much had the same family many times. That's why our conflicts are so deep. Another question?
Yeah, I want to say we gotta wake up the conscious, make the effort again. How we do that?
Great question. How do we awaken the consciousness? Awakening the consciousness begins with simply paying attention. The function of consciousness is to perceive. So the beginning of awakening is to be right there watching. everything that comes into you and everything that's coming out of you. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, we have to be a watcher at the gateway of the senses. To be there, actively engaged in everything that comes in or out. But with us, we don't do that. We've got maybe a little fraction of attention on our senses, and the rest of our attention is in our mind. Running around with our worries, oh, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I need to go pay the bills, I need to go here, I need to go there, boy, I wish I could watch TV. All the things that are surging in our mind. That's where our attention is. And even then, it's completely dispersed. It's not integrated. So our attention is in 65 different things at any one time. That's what's got to change. We need to have our attention 100% here and now. Not distracted. Completely aware. And this has two fundamental functions. Awareness is general. Right? Awareness is sort of like the light in the room. It's on or it's off. With us, it's usually off. We're usually not aware of anything. The second part is attention, which is focused, like a flashlight. We need both. Simultaneous. And that takes training. We're not trained yet. That was the first thing we should have learned when we were kids. We didn't. We need a general awareness of ourselves, of our mind, of our environment. We also need directed attention, that we consciously pick what we're paying attention to. Not only what's there, but what's inside. So there are a lot of exercises we work with to train this. We call them self-observation and self-remembering. Some call it watchfulness. There's a technique called SOL, which means subject, object, location. And that's a technique to train yourself to pay attention all the time. It takes a lot of effort. In the beginning, it's exhausting because we're not used to it and our attention is very weak. So it feels like, I can't do this anymore. We'll do it for a couple of minutes and then we get tired and we forget. And then we remember and then we get tired and we forget. It takes training and training and training until eventually it becomes established in us and then it becomes normal, the way it should be. So don't expect you're going to get it in a week or 2 weeks or 2 years. It takes a lot of training. No, we have to be watchful of the senses. Right. Right. Please.
Just a quick one. There's like different levels of elementals, right?
Right.
Like just about, everyone. So if you're just walking around and don't really believe in spirituality and haven't really had anything, just kind of awaken you. And then let's say someone who's had a near-death experience or someone who's just had a spiritual awakening, are they on a different, they're both still elementals, but the person who's kind of, you understand what I'm saying?
Sure, I understand. They're more or less on the same level. When we look at the whole scale of the potential of consciousness, pretty much all of us on this planet right now are pretty much on the same level, whether we've had spiritual experiences or not. Because we're all in the same wave. Humanity goes in waves. And we're in one wave right now, and we're all kind of in the same boat. Unless we've done a lot of very serious spiritual work on ourselves and really awakened consciousness and had a lot of experiences and acquired a lot of knowledge, and then we might start to approach being something different.
Why is it that also some people seem to be born psychic and born able to astral project and lucid dream?
It's karmic again. Right. Sure. And that's because of work that they've probably done in previous existences. Remember, I was stating that we're on a karmic mind stream that's moving from body to body to body. And so in our previous existence, if we were working in spirituality, we could have developed some capacities, like astral projection or clairvoyance. And sometimes those powers can continue into the new body. It really depends. Depends on what we did, how we did it, and how incorporated that is into our essence. It does happen. It can also happen if we were working in black magic. if someone was working in black tantra or black magic or some kind of negative practices in their previous existences, they can also carry those abilities into the new body. And they can be born with clairvoyance and astral projection and all kinds of powers. And people will think they're a great saint. They're not. They're like any one of us, but they happen to have powers awake. They still have the ego. And that's the problem. The real measure of spiritual advancement is not powers. It's virtue. It's whether somebody is at heart a truly good person and able to act on that. That's the real measure. And a lot of groups get confused about that, thinking powers are the measure. They aren't. Was there another question back here?
How would we know if we have created the solar bodies or not?
How will we know if we've created the solar bodies? It's the $64 million question, isn't it? If you've created the astral body, you will know it because you will be able to use it. Unless your karma is so bad that your being takes it away from you. And so only you can know that. Same for the mental body and the causal body. What I'm trying to tell you is only you can know by finding out for yourself. There are a lot of students in this tradition who go to their instructor and say, "Did I make my astral body? Can you investigate for me and find out?" This is really foolish. And I've seen many instructors take advantage of that to manipulate students. Don't fall into it. If you've got it, good for you. You still have ego. You still have pride. You still have lust. Focus on that. If you don't have it, no problem. When the time comes for you to make it, your being will give you what you need to do it. On that note, let me explain two things. The astral body, mental body, and causal body are very important. Firstly, because they start to give us the capacity to reach the 5th degree of initiation and incarnate Christ, if we choose that path. Secondly, they are important because they represent the first degree of separation from the wheel of samsara. And let me explain what that means. We already have lunar bodies that belong to nature, that will be returned to nature. You could be a great saint in the elemental level without solar bodies, but when you've exhausted your human bodies, you've used them all up, nature will take you back, and you will be recycled through nature. The only way to get off the wheel is to create the solar bodies. And the only way to get off of it completely is to resurrect. The first step off the wheel is to create the solar astral body. This is the first coming of Christ, represented in the Gospels. That coming of Christ is representative or symbolic of when we create the solar astral body. And why that's important? That body belongs to Christ, not to nature. Meaning that that body is not subject to devolution. That body does not enter hell unless we commit very terrible crimes. This means that the solar astral body represents the first step of immortality in the relative sense. One who has the solar astral body is no longer subject to the mechanical devolution that all the other elementals are subject to. So this is a big deal. It gives you a degree of, like a foothold into nirvana. Likewise, the mental body and causal bodies is important. And let me explain one more thing about them. There is only one way to make solar bodies, and that is through sex. There is no exception. That's why Jesus stated, "That which is born of flesh is flesh. That which is born of spirit is spirit." The solar bodies are born of spirit, not flesh. We utilize the flesh to focus the spirit. We work in the physical world with a spouse in sexual transmutation, which we call tantra or alchemy, which is a process of restraining and harnessing the pure light of Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, which is in Rupa. That word Rupa is Sanskrit. It means form. In some Mahayana Buddhist schools, Nirmanakaya and Sambhogakaya are considered one body called Rupakaya. And the synthesis of that is in sexual energy. In those same schools, when you enter another level of instruction, where they've been teaching you about bodhicitta and what bodhicitta means, they will finally tell you that bodhicitta, which is the essence of Sambhogakaya working through Nirmanakaya, the essence of Christ, is sexual energy. It's in sex. That's how the solar bodies are made. No other way around it. The angel, the Buddha, the master is born the same way everything in life is ever born, through sex. But you can't make an angel through lust. You cannot make a Buddha or a master through lust. Only through chastity, pure sexuality, angelic, divine sexuality, which is the sexuality of the Trikaya, brought here. That's why it's so sacred, so secret, and so protected, because it's so precious. Another question in the back? Sorry, he beat you.
The so-called Egyptian Book of the Dead can be seen as a direct parallel with the
The Egyptian Book of the Dead is definitely a direct parallel, but with a different perspective. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is more of a narrative and it's very symbolic, whereas the Tibetan Book of the Dead is an instruction manual. The Book of Natural Liberation Through Hearing, which is what I was quoting from, is actually intended to be read to the person who died, whereas the Egyptian Book of the Dead is carried into the world of the dead by the dead person and is used by them as a guide. So they're a little bit different, but they do correspond well with each other. Both are symbolic. Question in the back?
Does the imagery that floods the awareness during the reality phase relate to the karma of the life just past or all past karma? And does retrieving karmic memories and working with them through meditation help with this?
Okay. The question is, the images that flood the mind during the clear light phase of the reality phase between birth and death, or death and birth, does that relate to the memories of only the previous existence or all of them? And does meditation during life help one with this phase? The elements that appear to the dead person during the three phases relate to the contents of that person's mind. Just the same as now. When we dream, we see the contents of our mind. We dream all kinds of stuff that makes no sense. Crazy, illogical, insane. And that's what we see in the death phase, in the reality phase, in the rebirth phase. We see the contents of our mind. That can be from any one of our existences. It can also be from psychological projections or effigies that may not have manifested from an existence. They can be so hugely complicated and obscure that it can't be put into words. Meditation definitely makes a difference in preparing oneself for these phases. To be a very serious meditator here and now means that one is daily diving into the contents of one mind and learning how to deal with it, how to be cognizant no matter what emerges, how to be attentive and awake and aware and never distracted, never fascinated. This is the training that we need, so that when death comes, we're ready. So that when we fall asleep at night, we're ready. Meditation is the most important preparation for the entire work. That's why it's the central practice of the Gnostics. Some schools teach that sex is the central practice. It is not. It's a foundation, but it is not the central practice. The central, most important practice in Gnosis is meditation. This means you can be single or in a couple. You can be divorced or married. It doesn't matter. What matters is learn to meditate. This is the best opportunity to learn to handle the phases of death, reality, and rebirth. Meditation. Another question?
Can you talk a bit about the relationship between conscious suffering and working with the ego?
Samael and Vior taught us that the path is walked based on this fundamental axiom of three forces or three factors: birth, death, and sacrifice. Birth is some of what I've been explaining today, that we have to create the soul. We have to learn about virtue and learn about how to be virtuous. And that requires training. We are not inherently masters. We have to learn. That takes knowledge. That's birth. Death is to work on the ego and to eliminate the causes of suffering. This is a huge work. The death of the ego is something that takes a long time to complete because we've been creating karma for many, many, many eons of lifetimes. And our karmic burden is extremely heavy. This is not an overnight work, and you can't pay somebody $1,000 to do it for you. You can only do it yourself or let nature do it for you. And if nature does it, in the end, you won't get anything. You'll be back where you started. The third factor is sacrifice, what he sometimes called conscious suffering. And this is where we give of ourselves to aid others. And this sacrifice will be idiosyncratic to each of us. We will each have our own way. Personally, I'm very poor. But I've been fortunate enough to be put in a position where I can try to help by teaching. I'm a bad teacher, but I'm trying to get better. And that's how I'm trying to help others. Maybe I'm making more suffering than good, but I'm trying. Others help by making donations. Some help at schools. Some help on the internet. Some help in their communities. The greatest sacrifices you can make to others is to help them find the path, learn about the path. Spiritual sacrifice is the best. It's good to help people eat, drink, have safety and security and education. These are all important. But nothing beats Dharma. Because it's the very soul at stake. Not just one body or one life, but a continuity of existences that you affect. So when he was talking about working on the ego and conscious suffering, these really are the synthesis. To daily work on the ego and to daily suffer on behalf of others. In other words, sacrifice to help others. I saw another hand somewhere. Another question? Yes?
So, would it be something when you're going through like these betweens to be desirous of like more intellectual capacity, like on like the next time around, or is that actually a boon at all? Because if you get wrapped up in this egoic mind that like desires, because knowledge is good, yet you can get carried away, and so is a mind is being born into a body that has more perhaps intellectual capacity good thing or bad thing?
It depends on your karmic stream. And it depends on the motivation and the impulse for that question in the person who's died. If you even had the ability to long for something after you were dead, like to say, oh, I want to be born in a better body, that at least shows some degree of cognizance of that state, right? It would imply that. So if someone who is dead said, oh, I hope in my next body I can have a better intellect, well, that at least shows that they're cognizant of being dead. That's good. It's rare. Most dead people have no idea they're dead. That's the first problem. In the same way that we're not aware when we're sleeping at night. We're in dreams and we think it's real. So the giant purple octopus is chasing us and we're running away because we don't realize it's a dream. And that's what happens when we're dead. So generally what surges in the mind after death is desire. of all kinds. Desire for revenge, desire for money, desire for sex, desire for power. Sometimes that power is intellectual power or spiritual power. It's still rooted in desire. If that desire for a better position or place in life is intended to help others and not serve oneself, that can be good. But whether it will be satisfied depends on our karma. Whether we deserve it. Yes?
What does absorption meditation have to do with states of consciousness for liberation?
The question is about absorption meditation and states of consciousness related to meditation. The term absorption can be interpreted in different ways. It depends on which school of meditation is being referred to. In Tibetan Buddhism, absorption has many types of meanings, again, depending specifically on which form of Tibetan Buddhism we're talking about. In terms of Gnosis, when we talk about absorption, we're really talking about samadhi. And what we mean by samadhi is a state of consciousness in which the essence or consciousness is extracted from the ego. No desire present. Pure cognizance, pure awareness, pure attention. No obscuration, no discursive thought or emotion. It is a type of perception that does not have any self-ishness. That type of meditation is absolutely critical to waking the positive aspect of the consciousness, to acquiring real knowledge. Without that, everything will be vague and unclear. We absolutely must learn how to access that state of consciousness. We call it absorption in the same way that we call Eden, Eden. Eden means bliss. Samadhi can mean that, ecstasy or bliss. It is a full state of concentration or attention in a state of equanimity and happiness. So we need that. Is there another question?
Yeah, I think the last one. At what meditation state can we begin to kill ego?
In what meditation state can we begin to kill ego? Right here and now. Attentive in the vigil state. That isn't, strictly speaking, a meditation state, but it is a state of consciousness in which we utilize attention. If you're awake in your physical body, vigil, the way you should be, you can begin to disempower your ego. Because the ego will surge in your mind and say, that really makes me mad. You better say something. You better do something. But our consciousness says, no, I'm not going to act on my anger. Or I'm not going to act on my lust. Instead, we watch and observe that anger or that lust. Thus, we not only stop it from acting in our mind and through our body, we learn about it. We stop feeding it. We stop letting it control us. That starts to starve it. It starts to take its power away. It doesn't kill it completely, but it begins the process. The same goes for meditation. We can be a complete beginner and only be capable of sitting down for 10 minutes and barely able to get through 10 minutes alive. But that effort is an effort of willpower to focus attention and consciousness, which will have an impact on our work on the ego, even if it is not direct. Indirectly, it affects it. Because that same effort of will to be attentive, we'll use it after meditation, that night, the next day, and so on. The direct execution of an ego related to states of consciousness depends on the depth of that ego. Some egos are very superficial and can be eliminated and executed in very shallow degrees of meditation. And some are very deep. So we have to start where we are and do our best. I think we'll end there. I'm exhausted. Thank you.
To learn more about what you learned in this lecture, we invite you to explore the books published by Glorian Publishing, available from booksellers worldwide. You may also be interested in online courses or upcoming retreats, all of which you can learn about at gnosticteachings.org. All of this has been made possible by the financial support of listeners like you. Will you help others to benefit from this knowledge? Most spiritual schools recommend a donation of $10 to $20 per lecture. Every donation helps. Make a donation now at gnosticteachings.org. Thank you. May all beings be happy.